Okay, there we go. So you should all be getting the notification that this Zoom is being recorded. I will be recording all of our live Zoom sessions. I found that really helps some of you when you are answering essay questions, when you are studying for quizzes, for exams. We're not going to have any of those in this semester, but even answering discussion board posts, it's useful sometimes to just be able to reference whatever the video, the lecture was for the week. So hello, everybody. I am Dr. Cardona. You can call me Dr. Cardona or Professor Cardona. I do have my PhD, so I always say, if you really want to butter me up when you're asking for something, calling me Dr. Cardona is fantastic. I got my PhD in history almost 6 years ago now, and it still feels fresh. So I still like it when people call me Dr. Cardona. But you see, I put my first name everywhere. So if anybody calls me by my first name, I don't get upset over that. Today's session will be recorded and posted. I'll show everybody how to access all of that today. So first thing is, I'm like, when I was as I'm looking at everybody's names, I don't see really quick anybody that's had me before, but maybe I see a couple of names that I recognize. But for those of you that have had me in a previous class, you might be able to help your classmates in telling them a little bit about me. Just as a quick introduction about myself, I've been teaching at Cal State LA for the past 6 years, ever since I finished my PhD. My PhD is in French history, actually, from the University of California, Irvine. I did it in French history and European history. I came straight to Cal State LA after finishing my degree, and I just love this campus so much. Right? I know that online classes are a little bit tricky, but I feel like regardless of format, I find that I love working with the kind of students that we work with at Cal State LA. And overall, for me, working at Cal State LA has been a great experience with the history department and the honors department. Every department I've taught with has been excellent. So I am so sorry that we're in a situation. This is actually kind of rare. I have had to take over a course in week 1 of a semester, but I've never had to take over a course where several weeks have already passed. Usually by week 3, departments have to decide if a course is going to go forward or not. And that's when they end up canceling classes or things like that. I'm guessing something significant happened that nobody could help, because professors spend a lot of time and energy setting up syllabi, setting up Canvas courses, and to then have to not teach the class, to scrap everything, it is a big deal. It was probably not done lightly. I was not given any information about what happened, just that someone was needed to teach this course, and I was actually on a plane flying to see my sister who lives in Nashville, because she was having surgery and she has a 5-month-old baby. So because I wasn't going to be teaching, I felt I could come and help her with that. But I'm actually really happy to teach this class. I have taught it in the past, and I really, really enjoy teaching this class. It's also very topical, because a lot of the topics we will be covering in here are in the news right now. There is legislation being passed to dictate what gets taught in courses like this, usually not at the college level, but at least in the K through 12, this material, it tends to is getting a lot of attention now, right? So let's see, a couple of things. So you all managed to find how to get on Zoom. By now, most of you are probably experts on finding Zoom, but I do want to share my screen really quick, and let me share it, click the right buttons. If it'll let me. Continue to enter system password. Okay, let's see. Can everybody hear me? My computer was trying to message me that, okay, you can, good. Okay, it was giving me weird messages. I find that not every instructor at Cal State LA uses Canvas. but I will. I've already started changing up our course on Canvas. Right now, you should be able to see kind of a Statue of Liberty image for History 2050, Section 6. So when you go to that now, you'll see it very different than what the previous professor had. And I want to give you just a quick tour of the way I'm going to design everything on this website. So this homepage, I have my email here because I find sometimes it can be hard to find how to reach me when you actually need to reach me. So if you can't find my email address anywhere else, you can always find it on Canvas. You can send me a message to the Canvas inbox, or you can just copy and paste this into your email. My Zoom office hours are going to be Monday and Wednesday, 3 to 4. So essentially right after our class, it's a different Zoom link. So if anybody needs to talk to me for longer than what we have at the end of our class, I would probably just ask you to switch over to a different Zoom link or by appointment. I want to emphasize this, that if you have a class right after this, or you have different commitments right after this course, this time might not work for you, but I am always available by appointment. And what I ask students to do is just send me a message on Canvas or an email. Let me know that you want to talk to me. And usually it helps if you tell me a few days and times that work for you. And my schedule usually is flexible enough that I can find a time to meet with students so that we fit it into your schedule. I'm also going to be creating buttons here that will take you, there'll be quick links to things that are going to be available in the navigation here on the left. Where I'm going to be putting everything and we're going to get used to clicking is on modules. Because right now, when you click on modules on the left-hand side, it's going to take you directly to all the files and where I'm going to be putting all the files for this class. So at the top is the syllabus, right? So the single most important thing right now that you need is the syllabus, because there you will see my policies and you'll see the schedule of readings and topics that we'll be covering in this class. I will come back to this in a minute because I want to go over my syllabus. But I also want to show you a few things that here. Some of these research links you won't need now. By the time we start writing our first paper for the class, you might need some of this. But I do want to point out that Cal State LA still has laptops and hotspots available to loan out to students. Please don't hesitate to do that. I know sometimes you think, well, I have a computer at home, but if you're sharing it with, multiple people at home, you might not have access to it when you need to, and so get one from the school, or a hotspot for internet access. I know the first semester they were giving out hotspots. There were some issues and they changed providers. So hopefully that's been worked out so that the hotspots work well. Some of these I just want you to be aware of. For example, that we do have a tutoring writing center on campus. I know a lot of you are first years here at Cal State LA. Please make use of them. They will have both in-person and online hours all the semester, right? So they will have tutors available in person where you can walk in. They do take walk-ins at the writing center and the tutoring center, but it's preferable to make an appointment, because sometimes you might walk in and they might not have someone available to work with you. And so it's always better to make an appointment so that somebody's there to help you. Another really important thing that I find most students don't know, especially transfer students, is that we have a student health center on campus, and they do more than just the COVID-19 vaccine stuff. That you can go to them for kind of basic healthcare needs, even if you don't have insurance. They offer low cost, but usually free services for you. So if you ever have need of that, please make use of the Student Health Center. If you go to their website, you'll find a full list of the things that they offer. And that includes like STD testing and also contraceptives. They have almost every method of contraception they can prescribe. And even if for somebody who has insurance through their parents, going through the Student Health Center is confidential, and it's something that does not have to be billed to your parents' insurance. just as an FYI, that is there because I find a lot of times you don't, students might not know, and you're already paying for all of this through your university fees, right? It's there, it's available. You should make use of it while you're in college, and we have this for you. The food pantry, the last few semesters, they've had kind of odd hours, and you have to kind of make appointments to make use of the food pantry. But I want to make sure you all know that we do have the food pantry on campus, and that you might need to make an appointment or figure out their hours, but that it's available. Right, I haven't checked their hours this semester, but when I do, I will make sure to reiterate that here. Okay, so you've had one assignment you had to do for your previous professor, and I am going to give you credit for having done that. I'm basically just going to give you the credit for having finished it. Like, you will get all the points that were supposed to go towards that assignment. I will read each and every one of these assignments you turned in, because the assignment's a really good one. He's asking you, what does it mean to be American? And all these questions are exactly at the heart of everything we're going to talk about this semester, right? So weeks 1 to 3, we're just going to kind of, I wasn't here for those weeks 1 to 3. So for me, things with me will start week 4. So basically what I'm going to do on Canvas is, on the modules, recreate the syllabus schedule I've given you, right? So I will always have a module for the week we're in. At the top will be the link to our Zoom. So you can bookmark, it'll be the same Zoom link, so you can bookmark it. But if you ever find yourself needing the link, it's always in the modules, right at the top. When there's reading, I will have this tab that says read, and then the readings will be linked there as a PDF. And then if there's a writing assignment, it'll be right under the write tab. Obviously, week 4, I'm starting from scratch, so I thought it would be that the most fair thing would be to not assign any reading and to not assign you anything to write. I am thinking about asking you all to tell me a little bit about yourselves in an assignment here. So if I have you do that, it'll be something really short, and it'll be right here under week 4. And then so forth, right? So I just made the week 5 live today. So if you haven't gone into the Canvas website today, this is where you'll find everything for next week, so that you can get started now if you wanted with this, since we don't have anything this week. But again, this is what the typical week will look like, right? The Zoom link at the top, the readings here. And I've said, that you're going to have a chapter to read by next Monday. It's right here, but it is from A Different Mirror, A History of Multicultural America. So those of you that purchase that book, if you have it in physical form, you don't have to get this PDF. You can read the physical book. It's chapter 6. And this one is about Irish immigration to the United States. On Wednesday, we're gonna, by the time we meet, you should have already read chapter 8, Searching for Gold Mountain. This one is about Chinese immigration to the United States. And we will discuss the readings the day that I have them listed here. So on Monday, we will discuss chapter 6. On Wednesday, we will discuss chapter 8. And then you will have a discussion board post to do at the end of next week. So right now, you don't have to worry about it. You haven't done the reading. You haven't we haven't had the lectures for it, but this gives you an idea of what the rest of the weeks will look like. I've only posted weeks 4 and week 5 because it takes me a little while to get everything on the Canvas website. If you give me one more weekend, I will have pretty much the rest of the course up on Canvas. I do that, one, in case anybody wants to work ahead, you can. Most of you will not, because who wants to be doing more than they need to? But it gives you an idea of what is coming up. So if you're ever wondering what is coming up, everything's available on Canvas, or very importantly, on the syllabus as well. Right? Let me see. Yeah, so for those of you, if you don't have your books yet, you're okay. You're okay. In fact, great, because I'm going to be able to save you some money. So I'm going to go back up to the top here of modules under syllabus and resources. The very top file is the syllabus. I encourage everybody to, download this into your computers, save it in a folder for all of your History 2050 files, because you might need to reference this throughout the semester. I'll go over this now, but let me pull up my PDF here. All right, can everybody see my PDF?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure. Okay, so at the top of the syllabus has also my contact information, like my email, and very importantly, that everything will be online in this course. It's just, I think anybody that jumped into the Zoom a little late missed it, but I can't teach in person right now. I have to do everything online, and so unfortunately, like this was the only option for me. Now, course description, I think your previous professor actually had a lengthier, really wonderful, course description. I think the main gist is that we're going to be looking at American history through the lens of race and ethnicity pretty extensively, right? So most of us, if you've gone through the public school system in California or in the United States, you will have gotten several units, several years of American history. I am assuming that you have the basics of American history down. And so I'm not going to go over like the precedents. You don't have to memorize who was president when or in which order necessarily. We don't have to remember colonies and states or anything like that. I'm assuming that if you don't know any of that, you have easy access to look up that information. Right? What we want to do is focus exclusively on how race and ethnicity have been an important part of history and are really key to understanding American history, and how they cross, how they intersect with issues of gender and class, right? Because all of those topics, it's hard to separate them, right? Because they all interact with one another. And so for me, the objectives is to get us to, have some content knowledge of American history, but really to go beyond that, right? To go beyond that and to really examine and understand how these topics have shaped American history and have built the United States we live in today. And I want you all to demonstrate your knowledge, the knowledge you will gain throughout the semester, and your critical thinking skills via discussion board posts and via your writing of essays. Right? That's the main way in which you're going to prove that you have the skills that we want you to have when taking this class. All right, one of the most important parts. What do you need to buy, or what do you need to have for my version of this course, and what you can return, right? Your previous professor had a great list of books. I don't like to assign as many books, primarily because I tend to have a very practical approach to teaching especially for these lower division books. I just know that the amount of time you have to read is limited. And so I just don't tend to not assign as much. You will need the Ronald Takaki, A Different Mirror textbook. So for anybody, let me switch to my other mirror. I pulled up a picture of it. The current version of it looks like this. A Different Mirror. And this one, because it's been in publication for a while, you can find very cheaply. So if you want to have the physical copy of the book, I encourage you to purchase it and to find the cheapest option out there. And it's not always Amazon. Look at some of these other websites and sellers online. I don't care what edition of the book you have. There have been changes made to this textbook along the way. But it's primarily to the later chapters. So, but any version, any edition of this book will work for this class. Right. There is another book that I will be using extensively. We will not be reading all of it though, and so you don't have to purchase it. So you don't have to purchase it. It is called Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. This is another reason why, everybody that teaches 2050, History 2050, teaches it differently, orders different books. One of my areas of expertise is medical history, because that was a major theme in my dissertation and in my research. So we'll be talking actually a lot about medical history in this class, and how race really was a key element of how different medical and scientific institutions were created and have developed in the US. So again, you don't have to buy either of these books if you don't want to, because I happen to already have PDFs of them that I will be scanning in and putting on Canvas. However, if you prefer having the physical books in front of you and you don't want to print out all the pages, then these are the two books that we will be using extensively. And I know a lot of you prefer having the physical book, right? So these books are worth buying if you have the money to spend on it. Are there questions about this, about the books?
Nope.
Some of you, if you've purchased the other books that were ordered by your previous professors, if you got them from the university bookstore, you can return them. They already know that there was a change in professor for this course, and usually they won't accept returns after a certain period. Because there was a change in professor, they should be able to take everything back. The only issue I've ever had with a student was they asked him for a note saying that I wasn't going to be using the book in class. And I can very easily write a note, write an email, or even call them and let them know. So if anybody encounters any problem trying to return a book, you can let me know, and I will do that. The other big thing here that most of you need to know from the syllabus is, okay, what actual work am I doing here? What are the requirements? How will my grade be shaped here, right? This is my breakdown. I know your previous professor had a different, I admire people that just break their syllabus up into all by points, and it all adds up to a nice round number. I like to divide it into categories and have weighted categories, right? So for example, Canvas activities, I will be assigning things like the discussion board posts, and all of those go into your Canvas activity category. That is 35% of your grade, because we'll be doing most of the smaller assignments you'll be doing for me will be Canvas activities. So it might be a discussion board post, or if I notice people aren't doing the reading, then I might, let me switch back. Then I might do a reading quiz, or I might have you do a group discussion on the Zoom. Anything like that will go into the Canvas activity category. And by doing it weighted here, all of those activities are worth 35% of your grade, it allows me to add and subtract assignments out of there, right? That way I can hit you with surprise quizzes. Now, before you panic, I tend to not like doing that. Because it's more grading for me and it's more work for you. But I always warn people that if I see the class, it has not all, if a lot of you are not doing the reading, that's when reading quizzes come in very handy. I find that people start reading a lot after that. Then you're going to be writing 3 papers for me. You're going to be writing one essentially about issues of race in the health field. Right? Issues of racism within the medical field. That's going to be worth 20% of your grade. We're going to be watching a documentary called Belly of the Beast, and it's about the forced sterilization of women in prison in California this was in the 80s and 90s. So very recent history of when the government was sterilizing women in prison without their consent. You can see how a lot of things are going to connect here. This issue of health and race and ethnicity. I'm also going to be having you do a fiction report, and I think your previous professor was going to do something like this as well. I'm going to be asking you to read a book, so a different book, one that I haven't assigned. I'm just going to ask that it be a work of fiction. Right, so not everything we're reading, most of what we're reading in this class is nonfiction, right? It's history. I'm going to ask you to find a book within the fiction category that speaks about one of the topics in this course. That's because sometimes, and we'll talk about this, there are limits to what historians can write about. Because when we write about history, we need evidence of what happened. And a lot of times people don't write about things, or we don't get evidence of like how people felt, right? How people felt. And sometimes fiction writers can paint a much better picture of what life was like via fiction. But we'll talk actually about the limits, right? There are a lot of limits then to what fiction can do with history. But it is one of the main ways in which we actually learn history, right? The studies all show that most of you will forget most of what you will learn in this class within 2 weeks after the semester ends. You'll forget most of it. But you might not forget that movie you're going to watch in a couple of years, right? That's going to touch on some of this history. Or you might not forget, or you might be able to remember that video game that was set during the American Civil War or during the American Revolution. Right? So I think fiction is an important way in which we consume history. And so I think it's important for us as we study history to keep that in mind and to kind of interact with it, right? To analyze it and to dig at it. Like figure out what fiction can do really well and what it doesn't do so well. I'm also making you all come meet with me at some point individually. Meeting with a professor with 10% of your grade. So you can't get an A in this class without meeting with me once at some point during the semester. So office hours are the easiest way to do it, but from time to time, I might cancel a class and say, okay, if you can't meet with me any other time, you should have at least the time of this class blocked off. I'll cancel class and people that need to can come meet with me. Mostly because I find that online classes are hard for a lot of us. They just are, right? And the studies also show that they tend to be very difficult for first generation students. They just show. And this is one way in which I try to address any issue that comes up and try to make sure that you don't fall through the cracks, that you're not hiding, behind the Zooms, things like that. So just, you don't have to prepare anything for these meetings with me. It's just come in and check with me. Sometimes students like to do them right before a paper is due. That's a great time to come meet with me because that will count. Sometimes students like to do it after the paper is due. That way we can talk about, okay, what can I do for the next paper to get a better grade? So things like that. Or you can just come randomly. You could come in, you could come talk to me today, and that would get you the points for the meeting with the professor. That would get you 10% of your grade done. So I'll be reminding you about this throughout the semester, but at some point you do have to come meet with me. Notice there's no room here for a midterm or a final exam. I don't like doing multiple choice tests, and I have found that online midterms and finals, the way I like doing them with short answer and essay questions, just don't work as great. Like, why not just give you a take-home essay? That's what these other papers are for. Essentially, 2 of these papers replace a midterm and a final, and they're scheduled when normally you would have a midterm and when normally you would have the final exam. That sucks for people who hate writing. That's where the Canvas activities can help balance out grades there. But also I will tell you that I know that a majority of the students taking this class are, 1, not history majors, and 2, are not going to take more history than what the school requires. And my, a lot of you are actually from the STEM fields and might not even think that you are good writers. And so I try to prepare you really well for writing each of these papers, right? Like I will give you a prompt for each paper, and I will go over it in detail in class. So I don't like anybody sitting down to write any paper for me with, any questions, with any doubt about what's expected of them. So anybody that's might be scared of all the writing that we'll do in here, hold off on the scared part. I will walk you through a lot of that. And you can hear in the course requirements, what I do is essentially what I just said out loud. I go over, summarize each of these assignments here. So when you need to, if you freak out in a week and you're like, what is this meeting with the professor thing? You can come back to the syllabus and see that. What questions do you have now? Any questions about the assignments? I do have the breakdown of what counts as an A versus an A minus, a B plus, or a B for me here. And these are pretty standard percentages. So right now you don't have to worry about any of that since we haven't started up yet. For students with disabilities, you don't have to contact me at all. If you already talked to the OSD office, they contact me and they give me all your information or what I need to know. But if really, I like to make a quick announcement about if anybody thinks they need any accommodation, even things like taking anxiety, things like that, you should go talk to the OSD office. So the office for students with disabilities, because usually we just need to get you tested, see if there is a disability, and then accommodations can be made. Right? Again, it's a service that's available to you as a student at Cal State LA, and you should take advantage of that while it's available. Protocol. So I like, one, some of you know, I like to be on my Zoom for classes 10 minutes before class starts because I like to chit chat with you all. Some of you like to log on right when the class starts. That's okay. Mostly just to get to know you, right? Just to get to know you, and also because I'm human and I'm interacting with you on a regular basis. And so we say that this is meant to be a community, even online. It's a community. I see your names, even if I never see your face all semester. So I see your names, I see your work, right? I get to know you to some extent over the course of the semester. And I want you to feel free to share things with me and with your classmates, right? And part of that is just being respectful, right? Doing what you're all doing now, which is, while someone is talking, you mute yourself, or, you don't make noise. But sometimes we all know on Zoom, you forget to mute yourself, and then the dog comes barking in or some noise happens, and that's okay. But just about being respectful with one another. Let's see, what else do I have here? Yeah, if I spot anyone being disrespectful, this tends to not be an issue. You all tend to be very good about respecting one another. But if I spot anybody, I will stop it, whether it's on Zoom or on a discussion board post. I've never had a problem with that, but I am prepared if I ever do. On Zoom, let's see, a couple of things about this. One, I'm not making you all turn on your cameras, but I love when you do. I love what you do because I like seeing faces, and a lot of times it's how I know if I'm going through the material too quickly, if I'm being confusing, because I can see in your faces that you're being confusing. Or alternatively, use the chat. Let me know, could you repeat that, or unmute yourself and tell me. That is all okay. I expect you, as I'm going through material, even as I'm lecturing, to stop me with questions or for clarification. Right? Otherwise, I love hearing the sound of my own voice. Honestly, I think most of your professors do. I think a lot of us became professors because we like to hear ourselves talk. and we have a lot to say on our topics of expertise. Like I said, I will be recording it. So if you ever miss a class, you will be able to see the recording on Canvas. This is actually a good time for me to show you where I will put it on Canvas. If we go back to our Canvas page, if you go back to the modules, I will post links for every class session right under attend. So at the top of attend will be the link to Zoom. And then below that will be video links for the class. Most of the time, what I do with the recordings is I upload the recordings onto YouTube. I like using YouTube because YouTube gives you the option of having captions, and tends to have less issues a lot of times. So YouTube links will post it below. It allows you to, like, for example, watch a video on like double speed. If you're just like, I just need to get to the one part. But except if I show a movie or we do anything like that, then, because of the copyright issues on YouTube, then I won't, then I'll use a different kind of link. But every time I record a Zoom class, it'll be here on Canvas. And I usually takes me about 24 to 48 hours to have these videos up. I try to not make it to even 24 hours. Like usually right after class, I will just, I'll wait for the video to be available. And then I will download it, upload it on YouTube, do all of that technical stuff. So it does take me a few hours. But if you're like sitting at home and you're thinking, oh, I need to watch that so I can complete the assignment, a quick email reminding me about that the link is sent up is fantastic. I love it because sometimes I might forget, right? Maybe it was taking a while for a video to download or to upload, and I forgot. I left it on my computer running, and then I forgot to post it on Canvas. And so please remind me when I do that, because otherwise it will take longer, and it usually helps all of you when somebody reminds me. Yes, so the recordings will be available. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, also because I love having when you all have your cameras on, I also understand that, like, sometimes you're in the living room or in the kitchen on Zoom, and I always get a kick out of seeing your families. Actually, when I see your parents, I'm like, hey, want to stop in? Do you want a lesson on 1776? Children are welcome. Pets, if you have dogs or cats, it's a requirement you have your pet on at some point. I will fail you if you don't show me your dogs. I actually don't have any of my dogs here. I didn't travel with any of them. I have 2 dogs, and you will routinely be seeing them because sometimes they'll get annoying. They want my attention, and I need to have them on my lap. If they get too annoying, I kick them out. But usually you'll be able to see my 2 pups. So children, family, all that, well, that's fine when we're doing it for Zoom. Anybody that's on campus, I love seeing where on campus you're watching the Zoom sessions from. Last semester, I had a couple students doing their Zooms in between classes on campus, and it was great to see campus. I haven't been on the Cal State LA campus in 2 years. In fact, I still have books in my office that I need to go get at some point. And those of you, by the way, I really encourage you. I can't force you, but I highly encourage you to put pictures on your Zooms so that when you don't have your camera on, your picture's still there. It's really helpful, especially in your majors when you do that, so that the professors that teach the classes in your major can identify you, can see your face somehow on a regular basis. That's really important, especially in your major, because those are the professors that you're going to need to get letters of recommendation from. And it's the professors you'll have more than likely multiple times, right? You'll be taking several classes from them, and that way they'll remember you, right? And so, like, I know most of you are not history majors, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to force you to put a picture on there, but it's nice. And it reminds your professors that there are people behind the Zooms right? That there are people attached to that. And your professors are people too. So usually when they can identify a name with a face, it helps. It just helps. Last semester, I had a student give birth in the middle of the semester and several who had infants at home. And I said, please, if you're nursing, when a baby needs to be fed, a baby needs to be fed. Like there's just no way around it. So if you need to be on Zoom feeding the baby, perfectly okay. You don't need to turn your camera on and let anybody know. But I want to make a point out of that because I know that a lot of students at Cal State LA are parents. And now that I've been watching my 5-month-old niece for a week, I know how needy kids are. I already knew beforehand, but it's very real to me right now. So just as a reminder to parents that all of that is okay, especially on Zoom. Really, our campus should be more parent-friendly given how many parents are students at Cal State LA. Because this is all on Zoom and I'm not on campus at all, the best way to communicate with me is via email. Right, so sending me an email or a message on Canvas. I'm very good at responding to emails. Some of my colleagues hate me, but the truth is I don't have children. So I have a little bit more free time than your professors who have children. So I'm constantly like on my phone, answering emails, which I probably shouldn't do. So what I ask though is that you give me at least 24 hours after you send me an email or a message to respond, because I think that's reasonable. On the weekends, 48 hours, just because, there's also a lot of things that can come up on the weekends. But I respond to every single email I get from students. If I didn't respond within these times, usually what happens is that either my email address was spelled wrong, or it might have gone into my junk mail. You want to double check that you're spelling the email correctly and tell me, and write me another email. And say follow up in the subject line so that I know that you've already tried to contact me once and I can give your email priority. Because this class is fully online, this becomes really important. If you have any question at all, if you have a problem with the PDF file for the week, if the discussion board's not visible, if I forgot to put something on Canvas or make it visible to you all, if a link is broken, anything like that, it's really important that somebody tell me, right, so that I can fix it for everybody. I already had a few of you who were like, wait, is the class really going to be all on Zoom? And so I was like, okay, thank God you asked, because yes, it's going to be all on Zoom and our first class is on Zoom. I prefer that email be treated like a formal communication method. I'm an older millennial, so I grew up with a lot of the technology all came along as I was in my teen years. So I'm very used to, being attached to my phone and to my technology. But I still think of email as a formal method of communication. I don't think of it as a text message the way most people of the younger generations do. So I like when an email is properly formatted, right? With Dear Professor Cardona, a few lines of a message, and then signed with your name. That's a losing battle. As students get younger and younger, I feel like professors are gonna have to give up on this formal email etiquette. So the most important thing to me is that you give me your name, because the email system doesn't always give me your name. And I just need to know, especially if you're asking me a question about grades, or I need to find something in the Canvas for you, that you tell me who I'm communicating with. Otherwise, I feel like, okay, some ghost in my class is emailing me, some random person. It just feels weird when you don't tell me your name. So tell me your name. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not precious about the doctor element on here, but Professor Cardona is a polite way of addressing me, or Profe Cardona, for anybody that is Latino. I sometimes I feel like maybe I'm too old school Latino, but there's the shorthand for professor in Spanish is profe. And the first time a student called me that a few years ago, I loved it. So I'm like, feel free to communicate with me in Spanish. Late work. Okay, important. If you've fallen asleep, wake up. This is important. You will want to not forget about this part. I think everybody can turn in work on time. And I love when you turn in work on time because it means you are done. You are done and I can get started grading. But life happens. Sometimes you might end up having a week where you have 3 essays due on one weekend. And that if you've procrastinated on all 3, then that really sucks. Or something legitimately happened and you just need an extra day or 2 to complete an assignment. So I've started doing this for the last 2 years, including a life happens class. It gives you an opportunity for on one assignment during the semester to get 3 extra days on the assignment without any penalty. I won't take points off. I won't mark it as late, nothing, no consequences, 3 extra days. All you have to do to use this class is send me an email letting me know that you're going to use it on the assignment. That's it. 3 extra days. You can only use it once, so you might want to save it for one of the bigger essays and not use it up on a smaller assignment. But it's there. Other than that, if an assignment is late, I do prefer that you submit something late rather than not submitting anything at all. If you don't submit anything, it's a 0. If you submit something, it's at least some points. And that can make a big difference in your grades. I do penalize late work, though. A letter grade for each day that's late, but a letter grade, I mean like a B+ to a B, for example, for a day late. If something bigger has happened, right? Like if you got COVID and you're in the hospital, I don't expect you to do homework for my class while you're in the hospital. And you don't even have to email me while you're in the hospital. I've had students email me from the hospital, and I'm thinking, focus on getting better, please. Once you're out of the hospital, or once you can function, then you can let me know what happens. And I will work with you. I think it's fair that somebody that's in the hospital not can be allowed to submit work late without any penalty. If there's a death in the family, then you can have more than 3 days to submit an assignment. So anything where you need more time, I just ask that you communicate with me when you can, right? Health permitting, right? You don't have to email me from the hospital, like I said, but then once you can, you email me and you let me know what is going on so that I can work with you and you don't have to take the class again. That's the key of why this course is why they found me. And even though I was like, I can't teach in person, they still hired me to teach this course because they wanted, all of you to be able to take it, get the credit for it. Attendance and participation. I do think that attendance isn't essential for doing well in my classes because first of all, most of you are not history majors, and so history might not come as easy. And really hearing as I discuss the material is just so much more beneficial than even listening to it after the fact, because you can't ask questions after the fact, you can't get clarification on anything after the fact, and because I'm assuming some knowledge already, there are times when I can't do that. I shouldn't be assuming knowledge, and I will only know based on what happens in the Zoom. So I encourage everybody to show up to the Zooms. I will be recording them, like I said, but I think the in-class interaction, even just the active listening, I think is essential for most people in order to do well. I found that that most people, in order to do well in my class, do need to be on here, at least listening, actively listening as they pay attention. Technology, I already talked about loan programs, plagiarism. Let's see, I don't want to spend too much time on plagiarism today because my time is limited, but I will spend more time on this before essays are due. You don't want to be caught plagiarizing. It goes in your record at minimum and can potentially get you kicked out of school. So you don't want to do it. You will, if I catch a paper plagiarized, you will get a 0 on it. And usually that means you're going to fail the class. I've never seen anybody come back from a plagiarized paper, especially when it's worth 20% of your grade. Right. I do use Turnitin for all the essays. So it does a basic plagiarism check. If you haven't used Turnitin, what it does is it's through Canvas. When you submit an assignment, it's already into Canvas. You don't have to have a separate password or username for it. For us, it's already integrated into Canvas, and it checks it against anybody else who's used Turnitin. So any other paper submitted to Turnitin. And it also checks it against anything available on the internet. So for example, if you copy and paste something from a Wikipedia entry and then submit it to a paper to me, Turnitin will highlight that for me, and it will tell me that you copied and pasted it from Wikipedia. And that is usually, that's the simplest way to get caught plagiarizing. And you don't want to do that. Like I said, though, I prep you. We spend quite a bit of time preparing before essays. So I try to make it easier to not plagiarize than it is to plagiarize. Right. And also hey, if you're like panicked right before a deadline, remember you have the Life Happens class. Take extra time. Communicate with me rather than turn in something that's going to be plagiarized and it's going to go in your file. If anybody has an ethical problem with Turnitin, let me know, because there are copyright issues with Turnitin. They say that no, not really, and all these things. But if anybody has a problem with it, and you just need to communicate with me about it. In history, a lot of this is, I'm like, some of your work will be similar to other work out there, because I'm not going to ask you to submit an original work of research, but a lot of times you're writing about the readings, or you did a little bit of research on the internet, and that's okay. In history, we expect you to use other people's words, the words of experts, but you cite it. You cite it. As long as things are cited, it's not plagiarism. And I will go through citation with you all. I will go through it. That's how you get around it in history, where you have to use other people's work. You just don't want to not give credit to the person who came up with the idea, came up with the point, wrote a sentence that you want to use in your paper. I did have one student, anecdotally, I should tell you, who submitted to me an entire paper. It was all copied and pasted from like 2 different online sources, entirely copied and pasted. But every single sentence was cited. It was cited. They got a 0 on the assignment, but they didn't plagiarize. Like, everything was not in their own words, but the student gave credit to every single source. And I thought that was kind of smart, a little bit dumb, but kind of smart as well, because they didn't get in trouble for the plagiarism element, which to me is a very serious issue. Okay, weeks 1 through 3, this is the way I organize my schedule. You can see I do it very differently than other professors, because I'm very organized and I can be very anal about some of my organization. And this is also just the way my brain works. My brain, this helps me organize my lesson plans, organize the material for the class. And so I just give it to you the way I organize it for myself, right? So I have the schedule with, I divide the course into weeks. We take it week by week. And then, day, we meet on Monday and Wednesday. I give you the topic that I am planning on discussing with you, what assignment you should have read by the time we meet on that day. And then on the very right-hand side is any writing you have to do at the end of that week. So let me show you. Week 4, we already said nothing. You don't have to read anything this week. I will have a lecture on Wednesday. You don't have to read anything and you probably won't have to write anything. But next week you have reading, a reading assignment for Monday and a reading assignment for Wednesday. And you have a Canvas discussion board post. I like to keep my assignment simple in that everything will be due not on Monday, not on Wednesday, but on the Sunday at the end of that week. All of my assignments are always due the Sunday, basically the Sunday right before we meet the next week, right? So this first discussion board post at the end of week 5 is due Sunday, February 27th. Wow, someone says thank you. You can thank a class I had like 4 years ago because I kept trying to make assignments due on Friday because I felt like this way you finish it and then you can relax more the weekend or do stuff for other classes. And they were like, no, we want Sunday. So I was like, okay, if you all want to torture yourselves with Sunday, you can have Sunday. They also told, what I learned from them was also that you all prefer midnight deadlines. Why you want to be up at midnight working on an essay, I have no clue. But I was like that as a student too. So the deadline is always Sunday by midnight. Yeah, you all really do. I think it's just that procrastination element. A lot of you think you're very good procrastinators. You're really not. But that's so every assignment will be due like at the end of week 5, Sunday by midnight. The next week, same thing, Sunday by midnight. You can always do them ahead of time though. Like I said, right now I only have up to week 5 on Canvas, but give me 1 week and I will have everything up so that if you want to do it right after our Wednesday class, when everything is fresh, do that then. I had a bunch of students do that last semester and they were finishing those discussion board posts like right after the end of class. And it was great. It was great. Some of you, I'm like, most of you like procrastination, but I know there's always a few students who are very well organized and can submit things ahead of time, get that assignment done, move on to the next thing. And I have found that those are the students that are always the least stressed. The least stressed. Just a note for those of you who feel like the semester just runs away and you feel like, well, there goes my organization. It's been lost. So anyway, so right now all the schedule of everything is on the syllabus, but I will recreate everything that's here on Canvas as well. So Canvas, those of you that use Canvas as like your calendar for due dates, you should be able to do that in my class, right? You can see that you'll have a discussion board post at the end of week 6, at the end of week 7, but then week 8. So March. I'm like, what month is coming after February? You'll have a paper on the documentary. A discussion board. That's a discussion board post on the documentary, and then the paper on the documentary before spring break, and then discussion board. So you can plan. Those of you that have a planner for your course work can start planning ahead using the syllabus, knowing when the bigger papers are going to be due, as opposed to the discussion board posts. Right. So you can see the only thing I don't have yet is the day and time of our final exam. I have a tentative one, but I'm going to wait till the school gives us their final. This is your day and time for a final exam, and that's when this paper will be due. But otherwise, the other thing you might want to look at is look at the topics I have here. So I kind of scrapped a lot of this stuff beforehand when we're going to start talking about slavery on Wednesday. There's just no beating around the bush. We need to start with slavery. It's going to be a central theme for the rest of the course. Usually, though, I like to start with definitions about, defining what is race, what is ethnicity. But I think your previous professor did that with you all. Did you all do that? Define race and ethnicity? No?
Not that I remember.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
No.
Okay, then never mind. I will make zero assumptions. I will pretend you did nothing before me. And your semester in this class started with me. So I will do a little bit about definitions, right? Because it's very important. We're going to be talking about race and ethnicity, and we need to know the difference of what counts as race, what counts as an ethnicity, and why it's all created by society and none of it is scientific. Like, that's how I'll start on Wednesday, and by telling you that biologically race does not exist. And yet, why are we going to talk about race all the entire semester? Right? And we'll talk about the alum Western expansion. So we will kind of take a bit of a conventional narrative of starting from the East Coast with 13 colonies moving west, even though while the English and other Europeans are landing in the east coast of what is now the United States, the Spanish were landing in Florida, the French were in Louisiana, and up through the river of the central United States, and the Spanish were in California, and there were Native people everywhere. But we're going to take the typical American history narrative and then give it a turn. So we will not ignore the fact that other groups are around. We will not ignore Native populations, but we're taking kind of the traditional framework to do that. We're going to remember the Alamo, or kind of talk about some of that. And then the Spanish American War. Now I'm like, this is when I know I've been talking too much. The words are all escaping. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Civil War, but most of it, actually, I want to instead of focusing on the American Civil War, I want to focus on Reconstruction, because that's really when a lot of issues about race get, like, it defines what happens at the end of Reconstruction, defines racial interactions in the United States from that point till the Civil Rights Movement. So we'll spend a little bit talking about war and what war does in terms of race and ethnic relations, but then move on after that. We'll talk about eugenics and birth control, about the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power movement, and then I really want to get to all of the more recent American history, the War on Terror, so the Bush years, and talk about the presidency of Barack Obama and how that has shifted things in the United States, and the Donald Trump presidency as well. I know it's, when you hear those names and you hear that, we're thinking politics, but it's also history. It's also history. And given the discussions we're having in this country right now about race and ethnicity, how can we connect the dots, right, from older American history to today without talking about the presidencies of Donald Trump and Barack Obama? You can't. It's now part of our history. So I want to get to it and really tackle it from that perspective. Given everything else we're going to be talking about in this class, how can we understand those years in American history? And hopefully then we will kind of light the light in terms of seeing where the future of the US is going. I always like to think historians are very weary about talking the future, because we don't deal in the future, we deal in the past. But when the past cycles, right, we can identify cycles in history, then who better really to talk about the future than historians? Because we understand the cycles. And I'm saying we as in me and you all. Me and you all. We are all, the work you're going to be doing in this class is that of a historian. Whether you like history or not, the way we analyze history is going to be through the techniques, through the methods of a historian. You will all have the tools to do that, regardless of what your major is. You have the tools to analyze history like a historian. To me, that's the most important part of like civics and of being active citizens in this country. So yeah. So we'll start getting awkward on Wednesday when we talk about race and ethnicity. And I'll tell you a little bit about more about me, as I like to use myself as an example. But any questions? What questions do you have? No? Okay, so then just really quick, I will stop the recording, but I have one.
I had a question.